What I observe is that companies, number one, they're throwing so much technology at different problems that they have. One company told me they had 30 different AI solutions. It's interesting how we are worlds apart physically, but mentally so close in our thinking and our desire to educate the world on the importance of customer experience and how do you do it right. Somebody has to be designated to make sure that they work with the business lines, and they're the one. It's almost like if you had a band, they're the orchestra. The band, you have, piano players and drums and, all the different instruments, but somebody's got to be the conductor, and you need that in a company as well. Otherwise, it won't happen. The way that you really prove to the leadership team, especially those that are naysayers and don't really understand or believe in the importance of customer experience, is...
My name is Jochem van Veer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called TheyDo, the journey management platform for business decision making. We raised over $50 million and are growing globally. Our enterprise customers include Ford, J&J, the Home Depot, and Pfizer. I mean, wherever you look, understanding customers is key to staying ahead. But in order to do this at scale, aligning so many different teams with the customer journey is incredibly hard, but it is possible. I really wish this podcast existed before we started our company, because so many companies are organizing around journeys and there's so much to learn. So in order to share what I'm learning, what I'm hearing with our community, I meet with industry experts. And in my video podcast, I'm here to explore the world of business strategy, design, and journeys, customer journeys, to really get an understanding of how leaders are changing their way in their business. So let's dive into the show. What I really like about Stacy is that she believes customer experience is an inside job. It's not so much about the actual experience we create for customers. Well, that's incredibly important. The way it gets done and the best teams who are doing it are actually taking it as an inside job. So CX is an inside job in an organization to get it right. And we're going to talk about it. Like, how do employees feel job fulfillment leads to developing better experiences for customers, combining the voice of the customer and the voice of the employee, the data, to really understand like how internally we're showing up to customers, but also how we're disincentivizing people to work together, where bonus pay is literally supporting the wrong KPIs so that we are diverging rather than converging on what matters to the customer. And she has a great example on where that went wrong and how actually that could be avoided. I mean, we talk about pilot programs to earn the right to scale customer experience, and why it's so important to bring emotion into the equation while not forgetting about the business perspective. And customer experience is so much more than just thinking about satisfaction and increasing loyalty. It's really about how do we as an organization show up to our customers together. We talk about journey management as a concept, and spoiler alert, she is writing a book about it. And ultimately, where we end today is how we can close the loop for both the customer experience teams that directly touch the customer, but also in the broader strategic realm of the business. Stacy is fantastic. Her podcast is great, and she's speaking across the world. I highly recommend you check out one of her talks if you can. But first and foremost, let's enjoy today's conversation. My guest today is Stacy Sherman, and she's grounded in over 25 years of leadership at reputable brands like Verizon, AT&T, Schindler, Elevator Corp, Wilton Brands, Live Ops, BPO. Like, there's so many. She's practical and taking an actionable strategic approach to customer experience. And she's also shaped by her MBA and a deep passion for human lives and making that the best version of what it can possibly be. But she's an award-winning thought leader, an influencer, and continues to share her expertise through books, LinkedIn learning courses, immersive workshops. And if you didn't know, definitely check it out. She has a podcast doing CX right. And what's in the title, which is maybe the best place to start before we dig in, but I'll let Stacy say a few words. I mean, I'm very excited that you are here. Stacy, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. It's interesting how we are worlds apart physically, but mentally so close in our thinking and our desire to educate the world on the importance of customer experience and how do you do it right, and the
Yeah, right.
belief and the passion around that.
I think people would have appreciated if we would record like the pre-chat we had before we started to dig in, but maybe we can bring some of that back into the conversation today, because you are right? And maybe let's start there, like doing CX right. There's also a way to do CX wrong. So let's start with some high over ways where CX is actually practiced terribly wrong and what it actually means to do it right. Just give me a couple of your thoughts and we'll start to uncover the rest of the conversation from there.
Yeah. So the number one fundamental problem, and I talk about this from the stage in my keynotes, is that when a customer problem happens, many people in the organization do this. They point to someone else instead of pointing at themselves as the accountability for correcting that customer challenge. And one of the things that I will repeat probably 5 times in this conversation is that whether you're in HR, IT, finance, legal, right, in marketing, sales, you have a customer experience role from CEO to intern. And many times people are like, no, I don't, Stacy. I don't talk to the customer, or that's customer service's job. And I said, no, we need to sit down and talk, because you collectively, you individually have a role and need to understand that. I'll pause because there's so much behind that.
I love it. You were like going off this rant. I didn't need to answer or ask any more question if we would go, right. But I think this is striking, right? So is the problem, and I mean, I'm asking this to many of my guests, is the problem that we make customer experience a department? Is that actually like one of the fundamental problems that we got ourselves into?
Yes, and people are not trained to understand how they affect the customer. They think it just needs to be in their job title, the description of their role, but actually it goes bigger than that. And the importance of unifying and that accountability from the leadership, really reinforcing that from a culture perspective, is so important. Without that, it won't happen. Maybe you'll have some few leaders or people at all different levels will say, well, I really care. I want to be a change agent and I want to help the customer no matter where I am in the organization, or no matter where a customer interacts with our brand. When you think about a customer journey, it doesn't matter that maybe someone lives in the customer service department or not. Someone in finance, someone's having a billing problem, and you say, you know what? I'm not going to pass you along. I'm in finance. I don't really deal with the customer firsthand, but I'm going to take the extra discretionary effort to help you with the billing problem you're having. That, with everybody understanding that accountability and care, and everybody also understanding across the customer journey, the domino effect, that where one person begins and ends in the journey, it absolutely, that domino effect and compounding effect, you have to all be aligned.
It's so simple when you think about it, but in reality, it's like extremely difficult to pull this up. But what I like about this example is, this is common, like any subscription service, any telco, any utilities company, like they have this, like they have problems in billing and customers are calling about it. So you can tackle it from that way and say, hey, look, we're going to make your experience effortless. We're going to resolve this issue and, make sure that you can pay your bill or get some money back because we made an error. But in general, I mean, it's striking that I'm seeing a lot of those companies, they have like a 50 to 60% invoice payment rate. So basically 40% of the invoices, almost half of the invoices doesn't get paid because People don't have money. People don't want to pay. People just refuse to pay. But more strikingly, they're making errors on the invoices. There's incomplete information. The calculations weren't done properly. All these different reasons. So it's a big problem. So the other way around, and this I'm curious how you think about this, is also practicing customer experience, because you start from the internal world, like, hey, we have a cash collection problem in our accounts receivable, which is huge, which is billions of dollars every year, which we're not collecting because we're sending invoices that are not paid. What's going on? And when you unpack and unpeel the onion further, you realize there's all these problems in the customer experience that if you could prevent them or change them or actually do what you're supposed to do, ultimately impact that invoice payment ratio, right? So what you're saying is starting from the customer. What I'm saying is take the same problem, start from the business, which in the end is the same problem, but tackled from a financial perspective. Then everyone rallies around. Or it's tackled from a customer perspective. Then everyone says, like, yeah, it's not my job. Like you said, point fingers to each other and they're not doing anything and they're not aligned.
Yes, alignment is the biggest issue. Communication is a huge issue because of the lack of alignment and then the different messages people hear. The customer will get an offer, let's say an email offer. They try to put in the offer, let's say e-commerce. It does not work. They can't buy, they can't proceed. They call customer service and customer service says, I don't know what offer you're talking about, right? The disconnects that continuously happen. And so what I was saying before and even now is that customer experience is an inside job, and you need that seamless experience, whether it's we can drill into communication gaps. We can talk about technology gaps because there's human silos and data silos going on.
Right. I love that point of customer experience is an inside job. Tell me more on like how you're loading that message.
Well, again, it goes back to every person has a customer experience role. And until they understand, well, how? What do you mean? That is, without that, the problems will continue. So, for example, this is a retail, not a digital example, but demonstrates what I mean. I went to a store very well known in the USA. I'm not sure if where you are, called Trader Joe's. And Trader Joe's is just the type of grocery store that has unique products that speak for themselves. But outside the products, it's the experience from the moment you walk into that store till you leave. And they're the type of store where the employees, if I came in and I said, I can't find this fabulous peanut butter that you have that I love, where is that? They won't just point and tell you it's, aisle 5, go help yourself. What they'll do is they'll walk you to the peanut butter and they'll actually open the peanut butter so you can taste it. And I'm like, no, you don't have to waste money on me. No, we want to make sure you really like it before you buy it. Okay. I mean, that's up and beyond. But even more, now I take my peanut butter and I go to the cash register and the employee is asking me, how's my day? He's sharing some recipes I could do with the peanut butter. Much more importantly than that is it starts to rain, downpour. And he sees that I don't have an umbrella. He says, you know what? Can I help you with taking all your groceries? I have an umbrella here. I'll walk you to your car. And I'm thinking, wow, he didn't need to ask permission from his boss. He wanted to do a kind thing up and beyond. Walking a customer to their car with an umbrella is not in his job description. And here I am telling you about the brand because of that discretionary effort and going up and beyond, because the cash register, he felt he had more of a role than just taking my credit card.
I love that. Why are we still today, it's 2025 when we're recording this, struggling so hard with translating that to something that is able to be held digitally, or even a part of that experience could be digitally, right? People shop in like a grocery store and then they buy online and go back to the grocery store. And yet such a big difference in terms of how we service them. Is it just because they're humans, because they're also human beings that can relate to one another? Is that something that we'll never be able to do digitally, even though advances in AR are going to be made? Like, well, why do we struggle so bad with taking that simple act of service, going above and beyond, which is fairly reasonable if you're a kind human being, but it's in the context of a business such an amazing experience because you're not expecting it. But why are we struggling to take that to the digital world?
Well, two things. One, to close the loop on the offline, right, retail example. The store, this brand actually makes the employees feel job fulfillment. And so you have to focus on that. The training, the hiring right, and rewarding and recognition and appreciation makes that human being want to do more and deliver excellence. Now, in the digital world, I believe that we're in a world where it's both and. It's both technology and human, not either or. And an example of that is I used to work for a telecom company, and we had implemented, after you buy your product online, let's say an Apple phone, you buy online, you say you want to pick up at store that same day. Great. So you paid, now you get to go to the store. Now what happened is, so this is the hybrid of of online to offline, but what happened was when you go to the store, that customers were complaining that they already bought their product. Now they're waiting on a line to get what they wanted in the store. Now you're wasting my time. Well, so we, as the leaders in the company, would look at the voice of the customer, what they were saying about their experience. And that's how we knew from the digital feedback, the social media, the rating and review sites, the surveys, aggregating all that, even the customer service chat conversations. Aggregate that, prioritize it, and realize where's the pain point that we could go fix. We did, and we made a special line for people who bought online and come pick up at store. Then they can go in and out quickly. Plus, the retail employee got the data that from the online purchase and then was able to personalize the experience and know, hey, customer just bought an iPhone, Apple. Let me show that person some Apple accessories. So data, personalization, voice of customer insights, technology helping to prioritize those insights. I mean, that's doing CX right.
Right. I love that example. It sounds like the journey wasn't designed from day one. And I mean, there were gaps in that experience. So by uncovering that, I mean, this is a classic example. Like, where exactly is the friction? Well, it's happening like the moment that the phone pickup happens, and people just compete with the regular store customers for place in the line and getting service. So it sounds very logical in hindsight, right? But it's so hard to do ahead in time when you're designing this new experience, when you don't think about this.
Two things that are important lessons here. One is that when people are designing experiences, what happens in many companies, especially when there's new product launches, is that they're focused on speed over quality. We've got a product launch. It's got to be on this date. And they're so focused on the launch instead of really making sure that they captured customer feedback early, not post-launch, not just post-launch, so that they can not waste money in the launch. Like, you can't just throw it out there and hope it sticks. The other thing is, a lot of times companies are designing experiences from the inside only. So they'll map out an experience, but then they forget that you have to validate it with real customers and see what you designed. Does it really meet their needs? And then fix the gaps.
But how did, like, the prioritization is interesting, because you could also argue that new customer that just bought their phone, well, they're going to go above and beyond to get that new phone in their hands, because they're like going to the store, they want it and they want to interact with it. So even if they have to wait in line, even if that's a long time, they would still be okay with getting the phone, and they'll be like, yeah. And maybe like 1 or 2 years after, when they renew their contract, they'll be long forgotten that experience, and then they will just keep on being a customer. Like, what was the way why this was prioritized? I mean, I can see the cross-sell opportunity, having the right data for the people in store to understand, hey, there's an opportunity to sell an Apple accessory. But what was the prioritization like? Like, why was this important?
So this again is where there is your average experience, and then there's really what I call doing CX right. So when the customer's coming in now to the store, they're excited to get their device. You have a choice. The employee can say, here's your box, here's your phone or device, bye-bye, have a good day. Now, you might say the customer might be satisfied, got their device, may or may not come back. Satisfactory is kind of like fine. It was average. It was okay. May not come back. But I believe and know that satisfaction's not enough. So how do you do better than satisfaction? How do you do really delight a customer? How do you create emotional highs, which is my favorite measurement that I focus on? Because that is like, yes, I have to tell you about this brand. So the example here is when you get your device, it is very challenging for normal human, not normal. It is challenging for your everyday person who's not technical to take their old phone and get the old data onto the new phone. Now, there's easier ways today, but not back, a couple years ago where it was very hard. So when you went to go pick up your device, the employee would say, would you like help to take your old data and contacts and all that and put it on your new phone? And the answer would be, oh my gosh, you could help me? Yes. Oh, you're not going to charge me to do that for right now? Yes, we're going to help you. That's what people remember.
That's a delightful moment. So how can we be intentional about that? Because not every experience should be full of them, right? Because then you're right, like an extreme high, and at some point it gets annoying. How should we be intentional about this? Like when teams are designing the experience or finding the friction in the existing places where they can turn that into a delightful moment. Like once you have the hammer, not everything is a nil. So how do you coach teams on consistently finding those moments, designing intentionally for them, but not overwhelming a customer with too much of it or too little of it?
Yeah, that's why I lean in so much to understanding the voice of the customer and the voice of the employee combined. And hearing where are the pain points that are not just one-offs. They're a reoccurring theme, a reoccurring pain that is in your control to fix. And if you listen and you ask the right questions and you take the structured data, which is your survey feedback, and solicited and unsolicited feedback, and then the unstructured, where it's all over the website, all over social media. And you take all that data and really look at, well, how many times are people saying, I'm never going to go back to that store again. I have to wait on this long line and I don't have the time for it. Well, that's blaring. How many times is someone saying, well, we need to look into that. We need a solution. And then when we tested and put a separate line and actually got the employees doing things to be helpful, then we saw the complaints go down. We got to turn it around and turn these detractors into these promoters. And not only that, take the promoters and say, oh, you just actually said you're so happy with our brand and our products. Give them a way to recommend, not just ask them.
Where did the step to retrain employees to ask the question, should we help with your data, ultimately see the light of day? Because that's a big ask, right? Training everyone in every store to ask that question and then also to execute on it because it was important for customer experience. I mean, taking the voice of customer data, taking the voice of employee data, scraping the social web to really understand where that friction is one thing, but then tying it to the business and say, hey, look, here's why it matters. Here's what we should do about it. That's really the team or teams. I don't know how much of people were involved, but what was the steps involved to get that done?
Well, first of all, what I would do is every single meeting, whether it was my own team or other teams that I would go to, we would start the agenda with looking at customer feedback. And then I would ask everyone in the room, well, what could we do better? And involve them in the solutioning. So it's coming from them. And then they would start that habit, no matter where they were without me in the room, to do that. Secondly, a huge problem even to this very day is that because of company silos, they have different goals and metrics of how they're organized and how their objectives are and their accomplishments are. So you have a digital team and e-commerce sales that have different metrics than your retail. So when the metrics don't align, it's very hard to get people to care. That's an online to offline example, but even in one team, I remember my team and I were the only ones that had customer experience metrics tied to our pay in addition to company revenue, and other people did not. And so when my team and I would bring the insights the customers were complaining about, they would say to us, you know what, that's really good feedback, but I'm going to put it over here for a little while because I have other priorities. I'm like, how could a customer complaint and many of them not be your first priority? And it's, well, I'm measured on, expense reduction. I'm measured on these other things. And so I can't do that now. And so I said to the executive team, and I said, listen, I'm never going to be able to be successful in my role and to help champion the customer until we're all measured consistently in the same way. And that's what made the difference.
All right. Was it an overnight change?
No. God, no. But the way that I found with any customer experience program I wanted to do, any technology I wanted to bring in, any principles, journey mapping, anything, the way that you really prove to the leadership team, especially those that are naysayers and don't really understand or believe in the importance of customer experience, is pilot programs. You show them, you take a little small example, you show them, and you earn the right to scale.
If you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast channel and leave a review. It makes all the difference. The Experience Edge podcast is where I interview business leaders, CX pioneers, and the best designers who share their insight on creating business impact, having an edge on the customer experience. Do you want more exclusive content and behind-the-scenes access? Check out the Experience Edge podcast on YouTube and LinkedIn so you don't miss a thing. Now let's get back to the conversation. Right. And this is foundational because this is the step many customer experience teams that are from the past don't take, right? They are, quote unquote, report monkeys. if I can call them that very annoyingly. But there are teams that are just sending reports and giving maybe some insights that people like look at, say, oh, that's great, that's interesting, and then do nothing about it. And then the cycle repeats month over month, quarter over quarter. So those customer experience teams are almost pointless by today's standard. And it's so simple to take the next step, right? It's so simple to say, like, so what? Like, why does it matter? Who would it matter to? And then realize, like, okay, other people get measured by different standards. So can we take something that they get measured by that this work actually impacts? But yet only great teams take that step, right? To really have an edge. I mean, this is the title of the podcast. This is the entire point of the podcast. Like, this is it. Like, take that leap and start talking the language of the business. So even if it's simple, that's the way to do. What I liked about you bringing up the journey and the customer journey a couple of times, it's the same way, right? You don't do journey mapping for the sake of understanding. You don't have journey management to do this at scale and to really like get a customer understanding. You do it by tying different teams together across those silos. So I know you're writing a book on journey management. It was a coincidence. I didn't know that before we started talking. So very excited to dig into that a little bit. And you have this phrase of saying like, there's more than mapping. So maybe we should start there. Like, what is your thesis? Like, where are you going with this?
Yeah. So I know that your customers and your employees and your partners, they're on a journey with or without you. Think about that. They're on a journey with or without you. So you might as well design it where you can really influence and get people to want to be on the journey with you. And the way you do that is through everything we've been talking about, is that methodical design from how someone learns, typically marketing, awareness, learn, buy, get, use, pay, and get help, customer service at high level. And then you go deep and then you put the data in there and so on. But you have to do that both from the customer lens, walking in the customer's shoes, go be a customer of your products, and then from your workforce as well. How many people I know are designing that internal experience, but never shadowed anyone else in their job, never listened to customer calls as if they were an agent, and therefore you're flying blind. So management of the experience is all of that in totality. It's the digital, it's the offline, it's from all the different angles. And while not one person can handle every single interaction point themselves, as I described, the learn, buy, get, use, pay, get help, but you come together as a team, not just once, and you literally look and design those micro moments in the journey. And then you see, well, here's where I sit in the organization. And then here's the passover to the next team. And that next team then understands, oh, that's why you always ask me those questions. That's why you want to know, or that's why you're trying to put in this policy in place, because it's like this appreciation and understanding instead of everybody just in their own lane. And that's where you get in trouble, and that's where customers feel it. So omni-channel, I'd say the holistic journey management is all of those elements. It's complicated, but it's not when you think about yourself as when you work for a company. What's your onboarding like? What's your career path like? What happens when you need help to service a client, right? What's that experience like? Did anybody design it, or is it just, a guess and scavenger hunt to find answers, right? So there's so much to say, but it's both sides and more.
Are you taking the approach of bringing your philosophy of like CX as an inside job to this? Because it sounds like we're almost talking org design and redesigning the organization around the journey, which is, I don't know, if you're a big telco, not something you can do overnight, but I'm seeing a lot of organizations actually take a leap of faith and say, look, we're going to be intentional about actually tying our teams around the customer journey, realizing that there will be enabling teams and supporting teams that cut across all these journeys that can never be like packed to one stage, one step in your lifecycle framework, for instance. But are you taking steps to really make this an org design approach?
So I do have opinions on that. However, I think that that is such a huge um, transformation that companies haven't adopted yet, what you just described. And I think that we need to uncover companies that are doing that really well and spotlight them, because all the companies I've been in as a CX leader and marketing, and there's been a blend of those, but I've been in all different spots. I've been a CX leader within that sat in new product development. I've been a CX leader sitting in a sales department. I've been in a CX leader sitting in by itself, reporting right to the CEO. There's so many different places, and I feel like the CX person and team are moved around like a hot potato, and they can't seem to figure out the right spot. I have my opinions, but to this day, it's still companies are not sure what to do with it, and I think that's a mistake.
I'm seeing two models emerge. One is the centralized model where like there is what you have, right? That framework and then how all the customer journeys and experiences fit in there and how they're stacked, maybe even like interconnected. There's layers and layers and layers. That's one angle. And then you have like who owns the journey, right? Is it a marketer that owns the awareness piece of the experience and then they chuck it over the fence and then it's the sales team taking that over? Or do we have more like cross-functional journey pods? So who owns what journey? And in one organization type, I'm seeing a centralized model emerge where there's centralized control, centralized ownership over these journeys, but they're then made accessible for all these different teams to understand and report back onto and peg their work against. It's more a centralized model, which has pros, but also many cons. I mean, it becomes a bottleneck on its own. And then I'm seeing the hub and spoke model where there's a centralized team, leadership, specialized people that are making that framework consistent, almost like it's like a data warehouse structure, right? Where the data warehouse is architected and defined, and then there's all these different data marts being created for different teams to have access to parts of it so that they can run their analysis. And that's what that centralized team does. But then journey ownership is with the domain teams, whether it's by geo or product line or service line or even part of the journey phases, which is now becoming also something that I'm seeing. So I think like that model has legs, but it still appreciates the silos in the business, right? There are still like functional groups. It's typically a matrix organization. It's not that that goes away, but it is almost like the same side of the different side of the same coin. Like if we flip it around, we're seeing this way. Is that something that you're seeing as well? Like not a complete org redesign, but a different philosophy is organizing your data and making decisions and handing over the rituals into our company?
Yeah, I mean, yes, you absolutely need a person or a team to be the glue to the company. Somebody has to be designated to make sure that they work with the business lines, and they're the one. It's almost like if you had a band, they're the orchestra, right? Orchestrator of the band. Now the band, you have, piano players and drums and, all the different instruments, but somebody's got to be the conductor, and you need that in a company as well. Otherwise it won't happen. Now, with that said, is if everyone doesn't understand, though, that where they need to be accountable to customer experiences and and it's pushed from the top down, but embraced also from the bottom up. You need that all happening, because otherwise you'll have even a one journey map of some experience or some interaction point, and it'll become wall art. So it's more than just the design, it's the culture, it's the alignment, it's the measurements, it's the empowerment of your people. It's all of that. And it starts from hiring the right people. And it also includes, when people are leaving the company, that exit too, because those people also might be customers or might refer you or not, and you have to manage that too. So this has arms and legs to it. So from an organizational standpoint, you need that right culture, and the only way that's going to happen is if you have a central leader and team who works very closely with every business line, and also governance, that once you get it right and the rhythm going and the music, in harmony, you need the governance to make sure it continues.
What is the role you see AI play in all of this? Like, are we going to get rid of the entire middle management layer, right? We have top-down support and bottom-up experts that can execute research, collect, aggregate data, and then AI plays a big role there, but it also plays a role in coordinating across teams. Like, where do you see AI bring this like journey centricity, if you will, to light?
So I see AI blending with the humans to enable the humans to build better relationships with each other and with customers. And when you do that right, that is the outcome. However, what I observe is that companies, number one, they're throwing so much technology at different problems that they have. One company told me they had 30 different AI solutions. 30. Like, what? No, more is not more. And so I believe that technology is very important, but not when you are using it as a crutch and you're using it where different departments have different technology and they don't all talk to each other. That's just as bad as the human silos. I love AI from the standpoint of where it's improving the human lives. And what I mean by that is, for example, in call centers, customer service agents, they have a rough job. It is very monotonous. It can get boring. It can get very repetitive. And so when an agent, especially the first time they're going to get on a customer call, like that's scary. And so I love technology for that first like getting out of their nesting stage, the first call, and then reoccurring. AI can be a great simulation where you can practice as if it's a real customer. And the AI can be like really angry or really happy, or it can be all these different personas. And then the agent can practice as many times as they want from voice or chat. And the magic that they've told me, these agents, is that their boss doesn't get the results of their practice sessions until they say, I'm ready now. I have that confidence. My boss can now hear my test results. So it's improving their confidence. And now they're ready to be supported and to actually go talk to real customers and feel like they can handle anything that comes their way. Now, one other caution, where agents, they're on the phone with a customer and they've got, seconds to be able to respond to a customer question. Well, oftentimes there's a library of information that they can tap into to answer the question on the spot. But if that information is old and outdated, you've completely taken away the ability for the agent to do a great job, to deliver excellence. And so that's why I say caution, because I mean, whether it's garbage in, garbage out saying, or, the AI or technology can only give out an output based on what the input is. And I've seen teams where they will put information into this repository that technology can read or help enable the agent, but nobody updated. The product has changed. And meanwhile, they're giving out old legacy information. I can
Right.
go on and on.
No, I love that example. I had AT&T from company that have technology to do routing for agents really well. They're matching the best possible agent or AI bot chat solution to the customer question. And by simply routing using AI, they massively have an impact on the customer experience to match. I mean, Stacy would solve a problem for a customer different than Jochem would, right? So they're going to match this customer to you because you're probably doing a better job than I would, and basically matching that. So that's on the customer side of things. So now to the inside job, where we're seeing AI play a role in data analysis and helping our customer experience teams be better understanding of like how all that data from our VOC programs, from our employee experience programs, from all of the different sides of the performance and behavior analytics is coming together. So there's no question that that part is transforming. If you had like a magic wand and to change something that you believe could have changed already, but it hasn't, like what would you change on the inside job of where maybe AI or customer experience come together and where people should actually do something which they haven't?
Yeah, it's stop the internal silos.
All right. And what would happen if they go away? What would happen if they go away?
What would happen is that the customer will hear the same message no matter who they talk to or where they talk to them, the employee, and won't be confused, won't have to play a game of, okay, I'm going to hang up now on the phone and go to chat because I'm going to get a better answer, which I do with the airlines. Like, that shouldn't be, right? Don't make me fight for it. Don't make me do the work to get the answer that I'm looking for, depending who I talk to. I think that, I mean, even sales teams, they promise something and then the customer success teams have to deliver on it, but they don't match in what should have been said, right? I talked about before that you give a customer a great offer because you want to thank them, but customer service never got the memo. So now they can't fulfill whatever someone calls about. They don't even know what to do with it. Like, this is communication. The break is because of the silos.
Right. I mean, you got me at silos. There's no doubt that they serve a purpose, right? They made the business grow. They made them able to serve so many different customers at scale, right? Your point, to keep people accountable and to have a function. So by no means I'm advocating for keeping the silos, but I'm seeing opportunities to just make them work better together rather than have infighting, have, goal mismatching because the organization was badly designed. So that's an ambition that I'm seeing organizations now are taking on and empowering their teams to do so. But it also starts with the principles that you shared, where it is about creating that alignment from day one to make sure that we all speak the same language, that we all have the right incentives, and that we're all are incentivized to strive towards the same goals, even though we have different metrics and KPIs that we care about from our side of the house. But aligning that, I mean, if we can get that part of the silos away, I'm definitely with you. But there is a time.
Well, even if you bring your silos, your different silos, and they come to the table together, and everybody is, you have one person who's orchestrating this, but they co-design the experience end to end. You have your silos, but there is that communication and domino effect, as I mentioned. So it's not about the silos, it's about bringing everyone together so that there's the clear understanding and designation of where do you begin, where do you end, but the customer doesn't feel. The customer sees you as one company. So if they go to your retail store or they call your service or they're doing something online, you're one company. And too many companies actually don't position themselves. They look like this multiple companies in one. And that's what the customer doesn't care about your org chart.
You can look into most organizations. They have their quarterly, monthly, weekly rhythms. Let's take the cross-functional ones that already exist. If you could advise on like where you would hijack those, you would change those by putting that like customer-centric, that journey-centric lens in so that they can all see it from the same perspective, right? They can have the different metrics, the voice of the customer, the insights, the experience, the journey, the steps that the customer goes through as their reference point. Like, where would you start? I mean, ultimately, it would be great if all those meetings are packed against it, but it's not reality. But the other end of the spectrum is that the customer experience team just, again, shares those reports on a monthly basis. People look at it, say, oh, the metric went up. That's great. And the next month, the metric went down. That's not great. And nothing happened. So where would you start? Is it on the monthly level? Is it on a weekly level? Is it daily? Should we think about more of the quarterly planning cycles? Like where would you start?
So what we did at a company I worked for is we would take the customer conversation on the phone and we would send, when we asked how the relationship is and they give feedback, we would get a score and the qualitative feedback. We would package it and my team would email it to the team that can do something with it, along with the local sales office, so that they know what their customer is saying when they're calling care. And now, to your point, it's not just being aware of what the customer's saying or irate about. They had to actually, we gave them the ability through technology to close the loop and report back to my team on what they did with that information. So that, for example, well, I went the next day over to the customer location. I sat down and had a conversation and we rectified it by bump A, B, C, D, E. They had to close the loop. And so it is a daily thing. You might not solve it that day, but it's like, I made an appointment with the customer. We're meeting on Thursday. On Thursday after that meeting, here's what we concluded. Here's what's going to happen. If it's a product feature, something broke or something's needed, it also goes to the product team and they have to say, okay, it is now scheduled on the roadmap and will launch in October. And now my team can actually tell the customer, we hear you. This is what we're doing. That's transformation.
How do you do this at scale? Because like, if you have 1 million customers
We
and
did.
thousands of calls a day.
Did. So that's where technology comes into play, because the technology and the phone systems and the email systems and the platform to report back, this wasn't phone calls to the sales office every day. It was the technology enabling the process flow of customer feedback to the right person and the right person feeding it back into what they did with it. So that's technology. But it also required the human, my team and I, to go do workshops within each team so that they understand, why are we doing this? It's not to give you busy work. So they understood the why and how much they were important in the customer experience, and get their buy-in, get their understanding, and it had to be the training and the workshops, ongoing support.
I love that. And the reason I was asking on like, how do you do this at scale is not necessarily closing the loop with the individual customers, like tying it back to like, hey, we shipped the feature for you, or we changed the process, or we just have a conversation with you. But a lot of times these changes require multiple teams to come together, fundamental changes in the technology, but also in the processes, the policies, the ways of working, retraining the employees, right? So that piece is often way harder to get it on everyone's agenda, to tie those teams together. Like, curious to hear you talk about what actually worked to actually do like the bigger initiatives and to make sure that everyone aligned across them.
Yeah, I mean, it starts at the top. When your executives say, we're going to do this, that made my job much better. Much better. People listened. Now, with that said, it doesn't just happen with magic. So that's where the leaders across the organization had to consistently implement and follow through. And that's where, again, my team and I would go to the local offices and work with, whether it was the salesperson, whether it was the office staff behind the scenes, whether it was technicians, mechanics, unionized people. Every single person had to understand the why and how their role, what they do, was essential to the team's success and the company's success. Couldn't do it just if the CEO said it. And so it was a discipline. It was a constant drumbeat.
I love that. It's the janitor, right? That was asked by, I think, Kennedy, saying like, why do you work here? And he said, I'm putting a man on the moon, not knowing that he was obviously president that was commissioning the work. So this is basically coming full circle, making sure that every single one working for your company is ultimately serving the customer and making sure that we're all aligned in delivering a great product or service to them. Stacy, if people want to know more or get you to speak at one of your of their events, or to get a copy of your new book, which I don't know the title of, but journey management sounds great to me. Where should they find you?
Yes, I welcome it. So first is my website, doingcxright.com. And you'll have a lot of free resources there. My blog, I write I give away a lot. My podcast, Doing CX Right. And you'll see on my speaking page all the different places I've spoken and what I'm talking about, which is really digging deep into the things we said today. How do you do it right in order to boost your revenue, retention, and brand reputation? And I'm also on every social media channel. LinkedIn is my favorite. And you'll see a lot of my information there. At this point in time, I am a top voice. So clearly LinkedIn likes what I have to say. And I have a newsletter as well. So, but reach out to me. Don't be shy. On my website, go to my contact page and tell me what's on your mind. Tell me your questions.
I love it. Thank you so much, Stacy, for being with me today.
Thank you so much.
All right, and that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you found it valuable today, don't forget to subscribe to The Experience Edge on your favorite podcast channel, leave a review, and share it with your team. I'd be delighted. Today's episode was brought to you by Daydo, an AI journey management solution for enterprise. To have an edge on your business strategy and to know why your customers do what they do, visit daydo.com and explore more resources to accelerate your customer experience game. And remember, the journey to creating customer-centric impact never ends, and here's always a new edge to discover in doing things differently. Next week, new episode. Until then, keep pushing the edge, stay inspired. See you in the next episode.